Good morning.
Your sound is
Hello?
going to come over to your.
All right, we're on the fourth
microphone
parak.
also, David.
Somebody else is talking. Shh. Because we're not going to mute, but you have to all be shh. Okay. Fourth parak. David will discuss the teaching of Ben Zoma and Ben Azai. Neither Tana is referred to as Rebbe or by a first name. They were great scholars of the early 2nd century CE and are sometimes spoken about in conjunction with two other great scholars, Elisha ben Avuya and Rabbi Akiva. After David reviews the wisdom of Ben Zoma and Ben Azai, I'll give you some more information about their personal lives.
Pirkei Avot, welcome everyone. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, and actually happy Mother's Day to all the fathers, because if not for the fathers, the mothers wouldn't be mothers. So anyway, happy Mother's Day, everybody. And we have good news. We heard last night that Palm Beach County, where we live, is starting to open up a little bit. So starting on Monday, people can get haircuts. Hair salons will be opening, and restaurants are opening at 25%. So looks like this long nightmare is starting to come to an end. So, in honor of the mothers, Ben Zoma says, Ezehu Chacham, who is wise, Halomed Mikol Adam. And of course, this is something we've all heard. It's a famous statement, but this is the source. This is where it comes from, right here. He says, who is a wise person? Somebody who is not arrogant to think that he can't learn from anyone else. And of course, if you're not listening, not learning, you can never learn. So Shenemar and David HaMelech said, Mikol Malamna Hiskalti, from all my teachers I have learned, Ki Edosecha Sichali, because your testimonies, in other words, statements about Hashem, are my meditations. Those are the things that I think about. Ezehu Gibor, who is a strong person. Who is a strong person? HaKoveshes Yitzro. So the Mishnah doesn't say you are strong if you can lift 200 pounds or you can swim a certain number of laps or whatever it is. It says your strength is that you're able to overcome your own evil impulses. Shinamar, because it says Tov Erech Apayim Gibor. So somebody who is slow to get angry. It was like sometimes somebody does something that makes us upset, and the immediate reaction, immediate impulse is to get angry. But if you're able to control that, so Moshel Berucho Miloched Ir, and somebody who can control his own impulses is stronger than one who can destroy a city. And it's interesting that these two statements are put together, right? That you're slow to anger and you don't destroy someone else's city, and that's sort of a reference to people who were victorious in war. And the first impulse is to take revenge and to do destruction. But, you know, as you can see that what's an example of the World War II, after the Second World War, what did the Allies do? Instead of taking revenge on the countries that they conquered, they had a Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe. And so far, thank God, the result has been that there has not been a major war in all those years. 75 years was celebrated just the other day after D-Day, and it's because the leaders were wise enough to take the advice of Pirkei Avot, not to try to totally destroy your enemy, but to control your own impulses. And Ezehu Ashir, who is a rich person, that's again Hasomech Bechalko, someone who is satisfied with what he has. But it does not really mean that if you achieve one goal, that's it. You can just be satisfied and never try to advance. Because if that were the case, the world would never get anywhere. And it says, Shenemar Yigia Kapecha Ki Tochel Ashrecha V'Tov Lach. So you'll be happy and all is well with you in this world, right? But still in all, we are entitled. In fact, we're encouraged to be ambitious and to have goals and to accomplish. But the point is that as long as you're doing it, keep in mind that you're overcoming your evil inclination, so that you're going to do it in an honest way, in a fair way, not to try to cheat. But nothing wrong with being ambitious and trying to accomplish. Ezu mechubad, who is a person who will be honored. Ha-mechubad es abrios. So if you want respect, the best way to get respect is to show respect for others. So if you are a person who is respectful of other people, eventually people will recognize that quality in you, and you will be respected yourself. Shnemar, ki mechavde achabe uboza yikalu. That those who honor me, I will honor. Hashem is saying this. But those who scorn me, those who look down, or those who are not respectful, and again, they're going to not be respected themselves. Ben Azai Omer, so Ben Azai says, have a rutz mitzvah kala borech min havera. He said, go to do even an easy mitzvah, even something that's light or easy. Don't run after it. You know, sometimes people want to do what's difficult, but the easy ones maybe get left by the wayside. He says, go after it, and what's easy is open for interpretation, right? What's easy for Ari might not be so easy for Jerry, or maybe what's easy for my wife to do, right? Michael was kidding her about washing the dishes. Well, I don't know how to run the dishwasher, so that's a tough one for me. So so make sure that if something is easy, it's difficult, you want to be trying to go after the mitzvah. Why? Because she mitzvah goreres mitzvah. Because one mitzvah leads to another, right? Once you do one good deed, it's going to lead to another one. V'avera goveres avera. And unfortunately, if you get into the habit of sinning, of doing what you should not be doing, well, it gets easier and easier, right? Because once you've done it the first time, then it's easy to do it a second time. Sheschar mitzvah, because the reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah. And that's kind of like a double reward, because yes, of course, if we go out and we buy a lulav and esrog and we celebrate on Sukkot and everything, so we're going to get rewarded for keeping the mitzvah. But don't we feel good too, right? Don't we feel good when we do a mitzvah? And certainly when we're doing a mitzvah between people, right? So all this opportunity we have right now to be helping each other and to work together for the community, even though we're separated physically. So that gives us a good feeling, right? It's a mitzvah, do chesed, but not only do we get the benefit of the mitzvah, but we get the pleasure of having done the mitzvah. But if you do an avera, all you have is that sin. And the pleasure that you might have from doing the avera, it's a fleeting thing, and it's just going to lead you to do more sin. Hu Hayomer used to say, Al tehi buz d'chol ha'adam. And this one, my grandmother, right? It's Mother's Day, so I can mention my grandmother. She used to say, every dog has his day. Right, so don't look down on anybody, because everybody, right? Because al tehi maflik l'chol davar, and don't look down on any item, anything, because she'ein l'cha adam she'ein lo shah. There's no man who's not going to have his moment, is not going to have his hour, right? Everybody at some point in their life has a strong point, and if you look down on them when they were down, that's not going to be good. They say, be careful. Treat people right on the way up, because you're going to meet them on the way down, right? And there's nothing that God created that has no place. And this particular statement is we say that David HaMelech feigned insanity, right? Because he said to God, "You see, everything has a place, everything has a purpose in your perfect world. How about insanity? What's the benefit of that?" And we know that at a certain point he was fleeing for his life, and he wound up in the court of a king who was really an enemy of his, and he pretended to be insane, and that's what saved his life. So everything that God created has a purpose and a place.
So I'm going to give you some information, the personal information about Ben Zoma and Ben Azai. These scholars are not referred to as rabbis, although they were certainly qualified. Perhaps it's because at this time in history, the early 2nd century CE, and during the time of the Bar Kokhba rebellion, the Romans were especially determined to stop Torah learning and would not allow an official smicha to be given to Jewish scholars. But maybe there's another reason why the Mishnah does not honor these men with a proper title. So I'm going to reference a story, and I'm taking it from Gemara Chagiga, Daf Yud Dalet Amud Beis, and here Elisha ben Avuya is discussed in great length. So Ben Yoma, Ben Azai, Elisha ben Avuya, and Rabbi Akiva were engaged in metaphysical speculation. I didn't make up that word, I found it in one of the sources, and that's what they said. So it said that they were searching for ultimate truth in what's called the Pardes, the garden, which would be a place of knowledge between earth and Hashem's dwelling place, a mystical place that we shouldn't enter. Now, I can't explain their experiences, but Rabbi Akiva was the only one of the rabbis who came out of the experience mentally and physically intact. Ben Zoma became demented. Ben Azai died. Elisha ben Avuya became an apostate and is often referred to as Acher, the other one, as a pretty derogatory term. Yet Ben Zoma and Ben Azai are revered for their opinions, though they strayed from mainstream Jewish thought. I'm going to introduce two more Rebbeim, Rabbi Levitas, three more, Rabbi Yishmael, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka. Just a little bit about each one. Rabbi Levitas Ish Yavne, an early Tana, is mentioned only this one time in the whole Mishnah. He was a very humble individual, and perhaps his original name was Levi. He was in the Sanhedrin, and it's possible that he was being confused with another Levi, and so he may have changed his name to Levitas. Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka was a contemporary of Rabbi Akiva in the early 2nd century CE, and Rabbi Yishmael studied with the sages of the Yavne Academy mid to late 2nd century CE.
Rabbi Levitas Ish Yavne Omer, so Rabbi Levitas from Yavne would say, Ma'od ma'od have a shval ruach, be extremely humble of spirit, shetikvas enosh rima, because we know what is going to be the end, at least physically, for all of us. So it doesn't pay to think too much of yourself, because if we all think about what is the end going to be, it's going to be kind of difficult to have that arrogant attitude. Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka Omer, so Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka said, Kol ha'machal shem shamayim b'seiser, anybody who does an action which is chil Hashem, we all know what a chil Hashem is. It's something that brings dishonor to the name of God. Nifroim mimena bagoli. Eventually, it's going to be found out, and we've had plenty of experiences with that. Certain people who maybe did some financial crimes, and eventually it got found out, right? So echad shogeg v'echad mezid b'chil Hashem. And in terms of chil Hashem, whether you did it inadvertently or intentionally, somehow or other, it always comes out, and it's going to be revealed. Rabbi Shmuel ben Omer, so this is Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yossi, actually. He said, Halomed al manas l'lamed, if somebody is studying for the purpose of teaching, maspikin b'yada lilmod l'lamed. So we know that if you're trying to live a good life, you're trying to do mitzvos, Hashem helps us, right? So if your goal is to become a good teacher, someone who can impart wisdom, you'll be assisted in that effort. However, halomed amanas lasos, but if your goal is not just to teach others, so not purely as an intellectual enterprise, but you want to learn so that you can know how best to live. So in that case, maspikin biyado lilmod ulalamed lishmor v'lasos. Then you will be assisted in your efforts to learn, to teach, to observe, and to do.
Okay, so now we meet Rabbi Tzadok and, of course, the famous Hillel. Rabbi Tzadok was a student of Hillel.
You like this section?
The brief words of wisdom associated with Tzadok are coupled immediately with a similar saying of Hillel. It seems that Rabbi Tzadok had no qualms about repeating the words of his master. He was a pious and humble man who fasted and prayed for the welfare of the Jewish people and neglected his own health. What I forgot to say was that I read in several places that Rabbi Tzadok really had no sayings of his own and loved to repeat the sayings of his teachers. So, that shows how humble he really was, that he was content. He wanted to say the words of the greats. So, there's a lot to learn from that too, about being humble. And he was so caring about other people that he really spent his time praying and fasting. There were a lot of terrible things going on during his day. And he neglected his own health. And so his friend Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai got permission from the Roman Emperor Vespasian. Now, Vespasian ruled from 69 to 79 CE. So he got permission to bring in a doctor to heal Rabbi Tzadok.
So, Rabbi Tzadok Omer, Rabbi Tzadok says, Al tifrosh min hatzibur. And you have to love these. Everything that we're learning is so apropos to what's going on in our own lives today. Do not separate yourself from the congregation. So here we are, all of us in our own homes, but we're creating and we're joining together into a congregation for the purpose, hopefully, of learning some Torah together. So we should be proud of the fact that we're not separating ourselves from the congregation. And so if you're called upon to judge a case, settle a dispute between people, don't act like a lawyer. Because what does a lawyer do? Not to say that lawyers are dishonorable people, they're not. But the point is that when you hire an attorney, right, if you have a problem, if you have a dispute with somebody, or if you're accused of a misdeed, of a crime or something, you're going to hire a lawyer to act as your advocate, right? So if you are serving as a judge in a dispute, don't act like a lawyer. Don't try to find some reason to justify the position of one or the other of the litigants. You're supposed to be an impartial judge, right? Call balls and strikes, and not to be acting as a lawyer. And don't use the fact that you've been chosen to be a judge and you maybe have some Torah learning, that you should use it like a crown to promote yourself. Below cardon lach porbo, and you shouldn't use it as a shovel to dig with. In other words, the Torah shouldn't be a tool that you use, right? Hillel omer, and so did Hillel say, "V'dishtamesh b'taga chalaf." Someone who uses the crown of the Torah, it falls away, right? Halamadata. So you learn kol anene midivrei Torah. Somebody who benefits from the Torah, and this doesn't mean that you shouldn't enjoy learning. Of course you should enjoy learning, but you shouldn't use your learning, the fact that you have learning, as a way to advance yourself financially, because if you do, nota chayav min ha'olam, you're destroying your own life. Because instead of taking one of the great joys of the world, you're using it somehow or other to advance yourself, and you're denying yourself that pleasure. So you're just taking away some of your own enjoyment of life.
Okay.
Which chapter are you on?
We're on chapter 4, and what we just did was we just did Mishnah Zion number 7, and now Mindel's going to give a little bit of introduction to the next ones.
So the next one is Rabbi Yossi and his son, Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yossi was a sage of Yavne who lived in the early 2nd century CE. Rabbi Akiva was his main teacher. Rabbi Yossi was often used as a source to settle halachic disputes between the Tanaim. We have to remember that when we say there were arguments, it doesn't mean that the rabbis were all sitting together. I mean, it's sort of figurative. But, they might have been in different countries, they might have been in different times, but there were discussions, and they used Rabbi Yossi as the authority. Now, Rabbi Shimon, the son of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, once asked his father why Rabbi Yossi's opinion prevailed during these arguments, since there were other sages that were considered just as authoritative as Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi replied, "Quiet, my son, quiet. You did not see Rabbi Yossi. If you had seen him, you would know that when he spoke cogently." So I had to look that word up. It means clear, logically, and convincingly. So, most importantly, if I can find the right page, he judged calmly and reasonably. I'm trying to be calm and reasonable. Yossi listened to all the opinions and evaluated opposing arguments. He saw many sides to each question and tried to find ways to harmonize dissenting views. Rabbi Yishmael was the oldest of Rabbi Yossi's sons, each of whom became noted Torah scholars. And this family lived in Tzipori in northern Israel.
So continuing on, we're in Mishnah Ches, the 8th Mishnah in the 4th parak. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Rabbi Yossi would say, Kol ha-mechaber es Torah, anybody who honors the Torah, gufa mechubad ala brios, he'll be honored by people. V'chol ha'mechalal es Torah, and somebody who disgraces the Torah, gufa mechulal ala brios. He personally will be dishonored. He'll be disgraced by other people. And of course, we all know, right? You see that if you act a certain way, you give honor to your learning, it's going to bring respect, going to bring honor to you. And if you denigrate it, if you make fun of it, so what happens in the end? People don't respect you, don't think very much of you, and you'll wind up people having a low opinion of you. Rabbi Shmuel ben Omer, so Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yossi, would say, "Hachoshech asmo min hadin." Somebody who choshech means darkness, right? So basically, it means like to hide from being a judge. So somebody who tries not to serve as a judge in a court, somebody like that, porek mimeno eva v'gazel v'shua shav. So he spares himself. He avoids enmity, because what happens very often when a case is decided, it's not too common that both sides are happy, right? So somebody is going to not like the judgment that you gave, so that means that you are going to create enemies for yourself. And also you're going to be putting yourself into situations where there's a temptation of theft, of bribery, right? And false swearing, because in many cases in the Gemara, there's always an attempt to avoid shvuos, right? They always want to try to solve a case without bringing a person to swear. So an example is if two people, very famous case, right? Shnai mochas and batalis, two people find a coat or a jacket or something in the street, and they're both pulling on it, and each one says, I found it, ani motzasiv kula shali, right? I found it, it's all mine, right? Each one says the same thing. So now you're the judge, Perry. What do you do, right? They both say that they found it. They both say that it belongs to them. And so there are no witnesses to what took place. So now you're the judge. So what do you have to do? The Gemara says that you have to make them swear that I have no less than half of it. Because if you make them swear that they have all of it, one of them is going to be lying. So this Mishnah is telling us, avoid that. Don't get yourself involved in that, because somehow a lot of times in court cases, false was, and of course in our American courts, everybody swears, right? You know, you put your hand on the Bible, you swear to tell the whole truth, and you know that of course some people are swearing falsely, and you want to avoid that. Vagas libo v'hora, and somebody who is quick to judge. He feels like he understands the situation immediately. He doesn't take a lot of time thinking, and he immediately gives a decision. So the Mishnah says, what is that person? Doesn't say that he's very good because he's quick to answer. No, he's called a shoteh, a fool, a rasha, an evil person, v'gasruch, an arrogant person. Because when you're called upon to judge a certain case, it's up to you to be careful, be deliberate, and make sure that you're judging properly. Hu hayomer, and Rabbi Shmuel further would say, this is the 10th Mishnah, al tehi dan yechidi, do not judge alone. Don't you be the sole judge. Why not? Because who is it that's permitted to judge alone? Who is it that's the one sole true judge? She'ein dan yechidi alecha. There's only one being in the world who can judge alone, and that's not you and that's not me. So don't be a judge by yourself. And now, so you take that advice to heart and you get two other people to join with you, but don't say, Al Tamar Kiblu Dati, and you don't say to these people, listen, I brought you in because I don't want to be judging by myself, but obviously my opinion is certainly more valuable than yours, so here's what I think and let's do it this way. You don't say that. Shehein Rashayim Veloata, because they're permitted to judge the case themselves. So they're in the role of being a judge, and they have just the same right as you to listen to all the facts and come to their own conclusion. And by the way, they can overrule you because the rule is majority rule. So two out of three, even though you might be the greater scholar, their opinion is the one that counts.
All right, on to Rabbi Yonatan and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yonatan is rarely quoted in this. He's a rarely quoted Tana. of the 2nd century CE. Rabbi Meir is a Tana we met last week. You know his wife Bruria was famous in her own right. And I wanted to review some information. I keep, every week I think, I need to say this because we can't assume that we all know all the facts, and I think these are important and it gives you a good picture. So what I wanted to say is that I wanted to review just a second about what the Mishnah, how did it come to be. So Rabbi Akiva assembled the Mishnayot, and Rabbi Meir organized the Mishnayot into topics. So when a Mishnah is not attributed to an author, when you don't see an author, you can assume that it is Rabbi Meir. They ascribe it to Rabbi Meir. Eventually, Yehuda Hanassi wrote down everything and he sealed the Mishnah. So I just wanted to get that in. And then a little bit more on Rabbi Meir. So he was a student of Rabbi Akiva. He studied with Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Elisha ben Avuya. The other, that guy we met a few minutes ago, Meir descended from a family of converts, from the family of the Roman Emperor Nero. Meir studied under Rabbi Akiva, but he also learned with Rabbi Elisha ben Avuya, that guy, the other. Meir continued to learn from Rabbi Elisha and made every attempt to get Rabbi Elisha to go back on the path of righteousness. Disparaging remarks were made about Rabbi Meir because of his continued association with Rabbi Elisha, the other. Rabbi Meir is sometimes referred to disparagingly as acherem, meaning someone, or perhaps implying nobody.
So continuing on with the Mishnah, we're on Mishnah 11, Mishnah Yud Aleph. Rabbi Yonasan Omer, Rabbi Yonasan would say, Kol HaMekayim es HaTorah Mi'oni. So poverty is a test, right? We're constantly being tested throughout our lives. So if you're poor, that's a test. If you're rich, it's a test also, right? Because how you conduct yourself when you have money and when you don't have money, right? So somebody who observes the Torah when he's poor, Sofo l'kaimon me'osher. So he's not using his poverty as an excuse. He's not saying, I just don't have time. I am so involved with trying to survive that I don't have time to learn. But he makes time to learn. So eventually he's gonna succeed financially and he'll be able to observe the Torah when he's rich. V'kol mebatel es haTorah me'osher. And somebody in his wealthy state ignores the Torah because he's too busy with his business and whatever else he's doing, and so he can't be bothered with it. And he makes all kinds of excuses for himself because, after all, this has to get taken care of. And what is the end going to be? Sofa levatla me'oni. And in the end, he'll lose his wealth, and he will be not observing the Torah as a poor person as well. So of course, we all know that this doesn't always happen, does it? I mean, sometimes people are poor and they study, right, Ari, and they stay poor. And some people are wealthy and we know that they don't behave correctly, and somehow or other it seems like it works out for them. So the answer is that God has his calculations, right? Hashem has his calculations, and it's not up to us to judge and decide what it should be the proper role for people, or what should be the way people live, the reward that people should be receiving. That's God's calculation. It's not up to us. And I just want to finish by saying again that today is Mother's Day. A couple of days from now it's going to be Lag BaOmer. Hopefully we're all going to be able to get out, and those of us that need haircuts are going to be able to get a haircut, and we're going to be able to continue to be together as an online community for the time being, and eventually get back to the point where we can enjoy our company with our fellows in our congregations, and
I'm writing a note to David.
Oh, right.
You forgot.
I didn't forget. Right.
Okay.
Right. Lag BaOmer is a very, very special day for us, and Lag BaOmer 1970, right, was our wedding day. So this is going to be a 50th anniversary. We were hoping to celebrate it in Eretz Yisrael, right? We had.
Can you see this? No, I don't think we can
50
see
years.
it. I wrote 50 on here. Need a magic marker.
It's our 50th anniversary, so we're happy to spend it with everybody, and we hope to spend time again with everyone together in our shul. So now, you have something you want to say, Minna?
I'm done.
Okay. So we said that
Thank you.
that today was going to be Robin. I see you're up there. Okay. So we said that today was going to be reserved for a tribute to mothers, Mother's Day, and so I'm going to ask anyone that wants to say something about your own mother, and since I have the microphone, I'll start just to say a brief word about my own mother. My mother grew up in a business family, and they spent a lot of time moving around. They were in the bakery business and so on, but they were not really observant. But somehow, when my parents got together, my mother and father decided that they wanted to get married. You know, today people have a whole list, right? When you make a shidduch, you get a whole list of questions and answers you have to check off. They had only one concern. Both my parents was that when they raised their children, the kids would all go to yeshiva. So I'm forever grateful to my mother for having that attitude, and so that's one thing. Of course, everybody's mother has many things to her, but I just wanted to say that very, very briefly. So, who else wants to say something about your mom?
It's Rebecca.
Rebecca, hi.
Hi, this is my mother, Susan Motonsky. I love her so much. She's taken care of me. She's a wonderful person, a wonderful mother, and I cherish her. She's taken care of me throughout my life. She's a genuinely compassionate and caring person, and she means the world to me. Happy Mother's Day to the world's best mother.
Oh, so nice. Very nice. Beautiful.
Thank you, Rebecca. Who else?
You're welcome.
Is Cheryl here? Cheryl Spar, are you here? I don't see Cheryl. No. Okay. Who else? You can unmute yourself. You know, there's a.
Cheryl is here, but she's muted.
Cheryl's muted.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, Cheryl.
Okay, so I'd like to
Teach me how to do that.
I'd like to say a few words about my mother. Many of you have seen her name in our bulletin every week, Hattie Thumb, Hattie Uden Thumb. She lived here in Century Village with my father, and was one of the early members of the shul. And her whole life, she really thought of education, Torah education for children. Her jobs were always as bookkeepers of yeshivas, Yeshiva of Crown Heights for many, many years, from before she was married till the time we moved from Williamsburg to Laurelton. In Laurelton, she started to work for Yeshiva of Central Queens and worked for them for almost 30 years. And her true love also was Amit. In those days, it was Mizrahi. And the idea of Torah education for children back then, they started at the very beginning, my mother. It was after the Holocaust, and it was so important to her to know that the children were being taken care of. And she spent her whole life working for that organization, wherever she lived, whether it was Laurelton, whether it was Brooklyn, whether it was Boca Raton, Florida. She was the one who started the Kafar Boca chapter of Amit in our own shul. So I just wanted, I don't know if you could see the picture, a little picture of my mom. Might be hard to see.
No, we see it. We see it.
Okay, she was a special lady in my life. Back in the day, she was very well known in the shul. And I thank you for letting me say just a few words about a very special person, as I know all of our mothers are. So thank you, and happy Mother's Day to all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Anybody
Cheryl. That's
else?
beautiful. Who else?
I would like to say some words about my mother.
Oh, great.
Hi, this is Rochelle. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Yes, Rochelle.
Okay. My mother came to America in 1939 from Germany. By herself. She was a very strong person, and really dedicated her life to doing mitzvot. She, in the 1950s, she, together with other people in Washington Heights, established an organization called Gemelas Chesed of Greater New York.
There was a rabbi, a lawyer, and other lay people, and their goal was to help people in need. They got calls from Brooklyn, even from Israel, and my mother was on the phone often until all hours of the night. People were in need of financial assistance. Later on, a number of years later, they established a senior citizen home in Palisades, New York, that served the needs of many people. And my mother's life was really dedicated to doing mitzvot. She would go visit the old people in the hospital. She herself was in the later on the early 90s, she would walk up a hill to a nursing home in the area to go feed the old people. And she really did a lot of chesed. And she was with us till she was 99 3/4. She was only sick about 2.5 months, the last years of her life. So she was really very special.
Very beautiful, Rochelle. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone. I don't know if you can see me. Can
We see
see me?
you.
Yeah.
We see you. We saw you.
Okay. All right, here's a picture of my mother and the rest of us at my son.
Hold it up higher.
Raise it up a little higher.
Higher. Little higher.
A little higher.
Yeah. Oh, great. Oh,
Beautiful.
nice. Very nice picture. Oh, I like that.
This
Very
just
nice.
happened to be standing across in the bookcase across from.
Oh, very nice. All right.
Okay, who else? Anyone else want to say something about your mom? Okay, so if not, we have a special treat. Since it is Mother's Day, we have a musical treat. Michael?
Yeah?
Go ahead, Michael.
She's saying something about you. Dad's still sleeping? Do you have a gallery view of this? You wanted a gallery view? I don't know. You know the song? I don't know the song. It's a Yiddish song, obviously. It's a Yiddish tribute to a Jewish mother. I guess I'm charged from the mother next to me. Let me see if we saw it. Hello? Hello? Yeah. We're coming? Oh. I'm not quite sure about it. Oh, it's okay. I think someone from my synagogue was trying to reach me. Well, what did you get so tense about? Someone was trying to reach me, but then it stopped.
Thank you, Michael. Beautiful.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And remember, Zeh Hayom. This is the day. This is the day Hashem made.
Great job.
God made this name for us. Okay? Be well, everybody.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy